to you. And that's what our whole series, as it starts today, is going to be about, is So Long Self. If you notice the peacock-looking shirt I'm wearing, and like, why is he wearing that? Well, talking about the world missions and stuff, they took my measurements in Africa, and 3 days later, a couple of girls made it for me. And I was able to pay them a whole month's wage, basically, in one shirt. So that's why I have a peacock-looking African shirt on. It's not Texas. It's not someone down at the restaurant would wear, wherever you guys have made comments. I'm okay. I'm satisfied with myself to know that I can wear this. So if you're making fun of me, you need to check yourself how comfortable you are in your skin. And I would let you borrow it, but it's fit to my size, and I can't gain an inch or lose one, so it's pretty tight. But this series is for me, and if it's for you too, that's great. But my biggest struggle is saying so long to myself, giving up what I've always done, what I want, my desires, and following Christ. And so I'm a big music guy, and with this song, how many of you heard the song So Long Self? It's by Mercy Me. It says, so long self, well, it's been fun, but I've found somebody else. And it's talking about life with Christ. And Jason, who spoke earlier up here, he's found somebody else that he wants to follow, and we have the same opportunity. And it's humility, but in that, it's giving glory to God. And I know that for me, meeting people of humility there's nothing like it. And you know the humble people in your life where you like, I want what they have. And it's not because they're loud and boisterous, and they're not usually the big speakers, just for the record. They don't wear peacock shirts. They're the people that you just can't wait to be around them again. They have that deep desire for God. They have that peace. And that's what we got from the leaders of the organization we helped in Africa, and that's what I hope to have more of. Again, it's a daily process. If you're not good at giving up things in your life, well, join the crowd. But as followers of Christ, we get to do that. We get to follow. So I want to read a verse in Mark chapter 8, verse 35. Kind of going to be our theme verse through all this series, but it says, if you try to hang on to your life, you'll lose it. But if you give up your life for my sake, Jesus says, for the sake of the good news, you will save it. Now, if I take this verse seriously, there's a lot I got to work on. There's a lot we all got to work on. And we'll go through some different verses and how we're going to do that. But do I give up my life for the sake of the good news? I'll volunteer a couple hours a week. I'll preach on Sunday. But what about the rest of my life? Am I willing to give up what's behind the scenes? Let's pray. God, I thank you for the humbleness that you show us. God, to the rich and poor and everybody in between, God, everything is based around being humble and knowing that you're God and we're not. So I thank you, God, what you're going to show us today. I thank you for the power of your Spirit that's going to move today. God, open up our hearts and minds, God. God, as we give things to you, you can take it. You can take everything we have to give and every other person. Thank you for your Son, Jesus, and it's him that we pray. Amen. So, I'm a big music guy, like I said, and we listen to Caleb, or it's hard during the pledge drive sometimes, I know. But we listen to Christian music, and what I ask myself often, and I've been asked this before, is, are you okay on your own? Like, can you handle things? Can you save yourself? Can you do different things? And even more, what if everything was taken away from you, like you were stripped clean? Is Jesus enough for you? And so today we're going to talk about the props that hold us up, that when they're knocked out, we have a choice to make. Is Jesus enough for us? Or did we really just love that prop? To me, I've loved a lot of props, but there's encouragement. And the reason I listen to Christian music, because there's a couple more songs I want to quote here. There's a song that says there's a slow fade when you give yourself away. That it doesn't happen overnight usually, that it takes time. Man, I want it quicker. I want to get rid of more. But then there's a song that maybe you've heard on the radio, and I got a slide for this, just one part. It's by the band Fee, which isn't real popular, but it says, Everything Falls is the name of the song. When everything falls apart, your arms hold me together. When everything falls apart, you're the only hope for this heart. When everything falls apart and my strength is gone, so it's not about us anymore, I find you mighty and strong. And it doesn't say I keep holding on, it says you keep holding on. Because even when we can't hold on anymore, God holds on to us. God's arms hold us together. It says sorrow will last for the night, but hope is rising with the sun. It's rising with the sun. There will be storms in life, but I know that you will overcome, and you have overcome. That Christ has overcome it for you. That when everything falls apart, his arms hold us together. When I was in 8th grade, my faith started to grow thanks to Christian music. I'll be 100% real. I listened to Toby Mac. Some of you know where this is going already. Never met Toby Mac. I've been to probably 15 of his concerts because he's the man. He's about my dad's age and he can still dance and sing like the best of them. Maybe he would wear a peacock shirt like this, I'm sure of it. Toby Mac had a prop slapped out from under him this week when his 21-year-old son died, tragically. And again, I don't know him, but I felt for him. Similar to the lady we're praying for and the man that lost their 21-year-old daughter in Columbus, tragically. Many of you have been through tragic moments and the prop's been kicked out from under you. And you ask yourself, where do I stand now? What happens when my props are out from under me? So I came up with some props. This is on the spur of the moment this morning because that's how much I plan. And we're going to talk about the good F words today. But first of all, when your family is messed up, when you don't want it to be, when everything's falling apart with your family, there's nothing else like it. This is your true test. I put it first pillar. I just made these up just for the record, so there's nothing professional about this. Your first pillar, I do believe, is important. When you lose, this week I was in a nursing home with someone who was losing their dad, and a grown man, seeing him cry and knowing that I'll lose my dad someday if he doesn't lose me first. We'll all lose our family, and that prop, when it's kicked out from under you, is like none other. Here's what Toby Mac made a statement. Again, he is famous, yes, but he's a real man that lost his son. My wife and I would want the world to know this. We don't follow God because we have some sort of under-the-table deal with him. Like, we'll follow you if you bless us. We follow God because we love him, and it's our honor. He is the God of the hills and the valleys, and he alone is beautiful above all things. I'm going to tell you, this isn't just a man that goes to church. That's a man that believes that even when the hardest pillar is kicked out from under you, it's not going to be easy. He'll cry, he'll question, he'll yell at God. And like some of you in here, you've had to deal with this. Even when the family pillar is kicked out, you follow God because you love him and you honor him. And even if it's against our own understanding, we believe that God is God. That's what you called to me. If you can get this, even just this one prop kicked out from under you, and if you can stay steady and keep praising God, that's what you call a personal relationship. That's the difference. I would not write a quote like that if something happened to Zeke today. I'm just going to be real with you. And it's not because he has someone write it for him, but I believe that he has a relationship with God. This man who's wrote songs, he's helped me grow my relationship with God, and probably many of you as well. And he has a heart for the young people. The family prop, again, when it's kicked out, are we still, is Jesus enough for us? Words are good, but I'm sure the many families who've lost loved ones, they're really asking themselves the question today. Going to Africa on a little bit lighter note, finances. Most people are way happier than I am. I'll put myself in their shoes. And they had 1,000 times less than I have. But their joy and their smiles and their love for each other, they didn't need this prop. They never had it, and they probably don't want it if they knew what it would do to them. we have a choice, and I believe there's nothing wrong with being rich. I'm just going to be honest with you. We can help people because of the money we have. But if finances are kicked out from under you, do you still follow God? Do you still look Jesus in the eye and say, you're enough, I'm still going to follow you? Can't tell you. I haven't been there. We talked about in Sunday school, it's easy to talk about something, but then really when it hits you, it's different. The third F is friends. If you're a big friend person, you're a people person like I am, you love to be around these people. And when some of us have experienced this, what if a friend that you look up to, that you've been real close to, makes a moral failure? Maybe they go to prison, maybe they do different things. Do you still follow Jesus the same? What if something happens to your family, finances, friends? I don't know, it's tough. We've had to experience it. You really get down deep. Why do you follow God? Is it for yourself? What's the deal? The fourth one, we're in America, so it's easy to put this. Food. We like food. We have food. There's an abundance of food even back there. And that's the way we work. We love food. But when's the last time, if you were hungry, if you're in a desolate place, if you're fasting, if you're really struggling, do you follow God the same? I'll tell you, I've tried fasting and I do different things with food, and I struggle big time. Do I still worship God the same? Maybe a future sermon will be complaining, because that's another good thing I do. So that may be on the line. Usually because of lack of food, friends, finances, family. The fifth F word, freedom. I know a couple guys in here has been in jail. Do you follow God when you have no freedom anymore? Paul in the Bible didn't have freedom. He was chained many times. He followed God, and not only did he follow God, it says that he sang with all he had to God, giving glory to God. And then the prison shook and the chains were let go. Freedom. We're in America, and we have freedom unlike any other. What if the freedom was taken away today? What if you had to do this and you had to do that? Would you still follow Jesus? Or would that pillar be one, well, I need that pillar in there, right? Freedom's a big thing. And I know a guy I did a conference with a few weeks ago. He said, I told my wife, do not get me out of jail. I'm exactly where I need to be. I need the freedom taken away so I can get to know God more. Great things can happen, actually, with our hearts if we humble ourselves and our freedom is taken away. Teenagers, take heart in that, because when freedoms are taken away from you and you're grounded, it's for a good reason, okay? I'm going to skip the faith leaders one for a second, and I'm going to go to the foo-foo and the fluff. I don't know I hope that word doesn't mean anything weird, foo-foo, but that's the word I'm putting out here for props. We make up a lot of, that's my word this morning, that's what God gave me. Foo-foo and the fluff. Basically anything that you find that, oh, I really need this, but you don't need it. It's not food, it's not clothing, it's not shelter, and it's definitely not Jesus. What if all that was taken away? Would you still worship Jesus? All right. So you can, some of you struggle in different areas than I do, but I still can't give a category that I'd want to get rid of. So we'll get rid of the foo-foo and fluff. We'll get rid of that pillar for now and wonder, do we still follow Jesus? That was easier. I don't want to give up food. Finances are needed. Can you even pick which one you'd give up out of there? Probably not. It's not fun, right? Faith leaders, my fifth or my seventh F, whatever you'd be. If your pastor, if he makes a immoral decision and he goes to jail, or if your mentor or people that you look up to in Christ, they fail you, what do? Do you have less faith in God? This was the big one for me, to be 100% honest with you. I would say my relationship started growing about 8 or 9 years ago in Christ to where I was excited. Like, nothing can stop me from following Christ now. But really, that wasn't the case. The real case was I was following a faith leader. And because they were excited. But what happens with people is they're not always excited. I don't know if you know anybody. If you get to hang out with me for a few minutes, probably you'll realize that I'm not always excited for God like I should be. And I put a lot of faith in the faith leader rather than in Jesus. And I was like, I'm following Jesus. And really, in reality, I was following the excited leader, right? And what God does is, because he's gracious, he puts up with us for a long time, he kind of fades the faith leader out of it. And what happened with me is the faith leader wasn't doing the same things I would have liked him to do, because I should be in control of the faith leader even. Like, it's my life, I should be able to control him. And he let me down in some ways. Really not ways that were really even mature, but my childish look on things, he let me down. And what happened was when that pillar was kicked out from under me, when the guy that I was really excited to follow wasn't doing things the way I wanted to, he was still there, and he didn't make any immoral decision, but when he wasn't doing what I wanted to, I dropped a lot. Probably a lot more than I should have. And that's the thing. When it comes down to the end of the day with all of us, can I be real? It's not about the people that encourage us. It's not about your faith leaders. It's not even about your parents or your kids. But all that's left when you die is between you and Jesus. That's it. You're right in the face with him. I was reading a verse this morning. It's not up on the board. But in 1 Timothy chapter 6, verse 6 and 7, it says this, and it just punched me in the face basically. Yet true godliness with contentment, so you gotta have both, is itself great wealth. After all, we brought nothing with us when we came into this world, and we can't take anything with us when we leave it. So if you have enough food and clothing, let us be content. Okay, so, due to scripture there, we don't need the pillar of freedom, right? Friends, finances, family. Jesus never had any of that. Matter of fact, Jesus says, who is my brother? Who is my sister? Right? He didn't have a rock to lay his head on most nights. He didn't have finances, a lot of money like we would think that he should have. His friends, what happened to them in the Garden of Gethsemane? See you later, Jesus. We're going to save ourselves. That pillar was knocked out. And then the other pillar of food, which sadly this may be the strongest one. I know it's ridiculous, but go without eating for a couple days. Jesus fasted for 40 days. He didn't need the food either because he was the food. And so when we come down to this point, I pray with all my heart that nobody ever gets all their pillars knocked out. But what if you do? Because quite frankly, when we get in front of our Maker someday, we don't have any of those pillars to rely on. Your mom's prayers got you there, great. But you can't rely on those. It's your personal relationship with God. That's it. And we get to Jesus, I'm sure we're going to start saying things we did, all of our pillars, and Jesus says, well, what about me? What if all that other would have been gone? Right? Do we still follow Jesus? I'm going to read some scripture that this all came from. It's in 2 Chronicles. It's about the kings. And if you read through Kings, it's some messed up stuff. It's a good soap opera type stuff. But reading through Kings in 2 Chronicles chapter 24, I'm just going to read the whole chapter and think about some of these pillars they had. Again, think about the family. Again, I should definitely not have erased those because now I'm going to have to remember them. Friends. See, this is a good test. What's next?
Food.
Definitely food in here somewhere. I already messed this one up, but finances will work. See, this is in the middle of a sermon quiz for you. What did you say again? Freedom, yes, and faith leaders. And then foo-foo. I don't forget that one. Faith leaders. Okay? Think about what's happening in this story, and then fluff. Thanks, Jason. All right. So that's what's going on. Think about all the stuff that was going to be taken away. But think about your life. When I'm reading this story, think about where do you rely on? Let's be real. Can you make it without a few of these categories? Can you make it without one of these categories? Would you still worship God because he's God? Is he your Savior? Let's just ask ourselves. So what happened here was, again, there's animosity in Israel, and there's been kings in and out, and some of them follow God, some of them don't. If they follow God, great things happen. If they don't, not so good. But Joash is the man we're talking about, and he became king when he was 7 years old. So, he reigned in Jerusalem for 40 years. So he was at 7, he reigned for 40 years. His mother was Zibiah from Beersheba, and Joash did what was pleasing in the Lord's sight. Listen to this. Throughout the lifetime of Jehoiada, the priest. And the priest chose 2 wives for Joash, and he had sons and daughters. So So family, right, that was very, very important. The faith leader was even more important because he decided who his wives were going to be, if you read it clearly there, right? And his sons and daughters he had. So he was doing good. At one point, Joash decided to repair and restore the temple of the Lord, which was really good. He summoned the priests and the Levites and gave them these instructions. Go to all the towns of Judah and collect the required annual offerings so that we can repair the temple of your God. And do not delay. But the Levites did not act immediately. So his friends were kind of failing him here a little bit. They didn't react like he wanted them to. His finances were very good as the king. Right, so he had all those to stand on. So the king called for Jehoiada the high priest, and he asked him, why haven't you demanded that the Levites go out and collect the temple taxes from the towns in Judah and Jerusalem? And then he puts it back on the old guy of our family of faith. Moses, the servant of the Lord, levied this tax on the community of Israel in order to maintain the tabernacle of the covenant. Over the years, the followers of that they had broken into the temple of God, and they had used all the dedicated things from the temple of the Lord to worship images of Baal. So he wanted to make a good change here. Verse 8, so now the king ordered a chest to be made and set outside the gate leading to the temple of the Lord. Then a proclamation was sent through Judah and Jerusalem, telling the people to bring to the Lord the taxes that Moses, the servant of God, had required of the Israelites in the wilderness. This pleased all the leaders and the people, and they gladly brought their money and filled the chest with it. So they were on board. They were doing it for the temple. Everything was good. Whenever the chest became full, the Levites would carry it to the king's officials. Then the court secretary and the officer of the high priest would come and empty the chest and take it back to the temple again. This went on day after day, and a large amount of money was collected. The king and Jehoiada the priest gave the money to the construction supervisors who hired masons and carpenters to restore the temple of the Lord. They also hired metal workers who made articles of iron and bronze for the Lord's temple. They were all going together to rebuild the temple. The men in charge of the renovation worked hard and made steady progress. They restored the temple of God according to its original design and strengthened it. When all the repairs were finished, they brought the remaining money to the king and Jehoiada. It was used to make various articles for the temple of the Lord, articles for worship services and burnt offerings, including ladles and other articles made of gold and silver. And the burnt offerings were sacrificed continually in the temple of the Lord during the lifetime of Jehoiada the priest. So basically all the pillars were set up. Joash's life was good, and he had his leader, Jehoiada the priest, with him. Jehoiada lived to a very old age, finally dying at 130. He was buried among the kings in the city of David because he had done so much good in Israel for God and his temple. So all the pillars were set up good, and then his faith leader passed away. He's gone. He's seen the good. He's seen the temple being rebuilt. Joash seen it all. Verse 17, but after Jehoiada's death, the leaders of Judah came and bowed before King Joash and persuaded him to listen to their advice. They decided to abandon the temple of the Lord, the God of their ancestors, and they worshipped Asherah poles and idols instead. Exclamation point. Instead, because of this sin, divine anger fell on Judah and Jerusalem. Yet the Lord sent prophets to bring them back to him. And the prophets warned them, but still the people would not listen. So he's like, well, things are going good. I lost my leader, and really, I'm losing the other stuff. But overnight, basically, when the head priest died, the whole mission of God was failing because he was listening to some friends he shouldn't have been listening to. Then the Spirit of God came upon Zechariah, son of Jehoiada the priest. Again, this is Jehoiada's son. This is a big deal, Zechariah. He stood before the people and said, this is what God says. Why do you disobey the Lord's commands and keep yourselves from prospering? You have abandoned the Lord, and now he has abandoned you. Trying to warn the people. Then the leaders plotted to kill Zechariah, and King Joash, this is the part that just boggles my mind, ordered that they stone him to death in the courtyard of the Lord's temple. So my faith leader here that got knocked out because of old age, not only to me it was very much disrespect, but he knocked out his son and stoned him because he was trying to tell him Go back to God. Forget about the pillars you think you have. You need to follow God. And he didn't react to the message very well. Matter of fact, I've never reacted that harshly, but when people try to just tell me, you're not doing this right, you need to humble yourself, just get close to God. I've never had anybody stoned, but I sure gave them an evil glare. And I sure have told them that they were wrong. But maybe someone's trying to tell you something. This was his son, and he knocked him out. This was how King Joash repaid Jehoiada for his loyalty. I like how it puts that in the Bible. By killing his son. Zechariah's last words as he died were, "May the Lord see what they are doing and avenge my death." And then the end of just Joash's reign. In the spring of the year, the Aramean army marched against Joash. They invaded Judah and Jerusalem and killed all the leaders of the nation. Then they sent all the plunder back to their king in Damascus. And although the Arameans attacked with only a small army, the Lord helped them conquer the much larger army of Judah. The people of Judah had abandoned the Lord, the God of their ancestors, so judgment was carried out against Joash. And I look at America, we are doing very well in a lot of these pillars, right? But when do we take our eye off God and put our eyes on all the pillars instead of God himself? To close up this story in Chronicles, it says the Arameans withdrew, leaving Joash severely wounded. Everything was already taken, so the finances were gone now. His friends were killed, his family, the royal line was done. He was now severely wounded. But his own officials, this is great, there goes the friends, plotted to kill him for murdering the son of Jehoiada the priest. They assassinated him as he lay in bed. Then he was buried in the city of David, but not in the royal cemetery. So basically everything was taken away and he was left to meet his maker, just like we all will be. One that I didn't put up here is health. When health is taken away, we often struggle there too. Why God? When Jesus asked the questions, who is my brother, who is my mother, he loved God in such a way that we're supposed to try. But are we willing to go and follow Jesus wherever? That whole take up your life or take up the cross, deny your flesh and follow me. It gets real. The first step to being a Christian is loving the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. That's it. If you can get that one, you'll be able to do the second one, which is love your neighbor as yourself. And then I believe there's a third one that is not important that I'm going to add is then you can love yourself. But you have to love God and love others. But how can we say we love God with all our heart, soul, mind, and strength? How can I say it when if I lose a family member, yes, it's able to rock you and that's okay. And it'll be with you the rest of your life. That's okay. But it's Jesus still who we're following when our friends betray us, when the finances are gone, when we don't have food on the table, when our freedom's taken away, the foo-foo's gone, and your faith leader is not the guy or woman that you thought they would be. The great part about Jesus is he's able to overcome all these things, and he's greater than all these things. And he gives us a chance to follow him, that there's no other props besides him. The story that really spurred this whole thing that joy comes through trusting God was the story of our sponsor child, Martin. If you can get the picture with the... Yeah. So Martin is a beautiful little 5-6-year-old. Doesn't speak in English, so I can't tell you a whole lot more about him. But he's our sponsor child that we sponsored in Africa. But the coolest part about the whole story of me going to Africa, and the most humbling part that I could ever imagine, was to meet his mom. The next picture here. We call her Mama Martin, because that's what they call the moms there. Whoever's in school, they call them Mama, whatever. But that's Mama Martin, and she has Emmanuel and Samuel, her twin 2-year-old boys, next to her. And so we were taken by the social worker, me and Caitlin, into the 10-by-10 room that they live in. The kid in the back, he's just a random neighbor. He just wanted to be in the picture. He needs to blow his nose. But anyways, we were led in to this lady's house, Marcy's house, okay? And so she's sitting right across from us, and I said, well, how long have you lived here? Because that's kind of a common question you're able to ask. And she said, About 2.5 years. And I was like, well, where did you come from? And she gets this real stern look on her face, and she doesn't have a whole lot in here anyways, in this little 10-by-10 hut. But she had the joy of the Lord, and this smile, she had it, she's kind of putting one on here, but she had a beautiful smile the whole time. She said, well, about 2.5 years ago, when I was carrying Emmanuel and Samuel in my belly, my husband died. And when he died, I was mourning him, and I came back to the house one day. So she has these two. She has Martin, who's 5 or 6, and then she has an older son. I think his name was Thomas. She said, when I was coming back from mourning my husband, I come back to my house, and it's gone. They burn it. Burned the whole house, burned all of her possessions, everything in it. If there was any foo-foo, it was gone. If there was the food, finances, everything was gone, burnt. I was like, who burnt your house? She said, my in-laws burnt my house down because they didn't want me to get any of my husband's inheritance, and they wanted the inheritance to go to them when they die, or to another people in the family, not a non-blood relative. So she said, not only that, when I got back, some person came and took my oldest son away because he would be the one that gets the inheritance. So I haven't seen my oldest son since that day either. So she lost, before these guys were born, when they were in her belly, she lost her husband and her oldest son, had her 2-year-old son Martin with her, and had to go somewhere. Where do you go when you have no money? You go to the slums because it's the cheapest place to live. And so they made it to the slums, and she was sitting in this place that she's been the whole time. And I said, well, tell me about your 2 twins. She said, well, I think it was Emmanuel, the one on the left. She said, he was born right here on the floor in this room. I'm glad the kids aren't in here now because it's about to get real fun. So he was born on the floor while I had my son Martin, who's age 2, behind me on the bed. And of course, I've seen my wife go through 2 labors, and I can't imagine how that looked. In that hut, the one was born. The other twin wouldn't come out. She has no friends, no family there. It kind of, it's very family driven, so you can be shunned kind of easy. So she said, he wouldn't come out, so I finally had to pick up the one son and walk to the hospital that's over a mile away. In labor with the second twin in her belly. Walks to the hospital, delivers the other son. And she said, they like downplay it. It was hard, but nothing like we would be telling an 8-hour story on how horrible that would be. She tells it like it's just another day at the office, right? She has the other son, and what she said to me next is what blows my mind. She said, "I praise God for all that He's given me. Where I am today is amazing. He's so loving, and He let me get to where I am today, and I have no words to describe how awesome God is." And I'm like, what? You've lost your oldest son, you lost your husband, you lost